And Stu. We'll get to stupid very quickly at the beginning.
Well, I mean, it's not like a throwaway.
On the air.
Well, we have a lot to discuss, so I don't know how much time stupid can.
Well, I
Okay,
mean,
go ahead.
5 minutes is plenty.
Whenever.
You're good.
This is Live from the Table, a Comedy Cellar affiliated podcast. Yeah, sorry. Let me start again. This is Live from the Table, a Comedy Cellar affiliated podcast coming at you on Sirius XM 99, Raw Dog, and on the Laugh Button Podcast Network. Dan Naturman here, along with Noam Dworman, owner of the world-famous Comedy Cellar, the ever-expanding world-famous Comedy Cellar. Periel Aschenbrand is with us. She is our producer, whatever producing means to you. We also have with us Sean Patton, a Comedy Cellar regular. He was here with us not too long ago. He is back. He is from Nolens, I believe.
New Orleans, Louisiana.
Him, along with Mr. Mark Norman, a couple of Cajuns that have, and there's also, of course, Matthew Broussard.
He's from Western Louisiana, I believe. But the New Jersey of New Orleans. Yeah.
Well, I don't know much about New Orleans, but he says that he is Cajun. Are you also
sure.
Cajun?
Everyone in that region has some Cajun blood in them. Mark's from like the East Village of New Orleans, and I'm from like the Staten Island of New Orleans.
And then there's Richard Ronovich, who's also from New Orleans, but by way he actually was born in Montreal, so I don't count him.
Oh, they keep coming. There'll be more. There one day will be another. The prophecy has spoken of the one from the Cajun lands.
Well, it's sort of a Cajun invasion, if you will, here at the Comedy Cellar. Before we get to Sean's new special, number one, which we want to talk about, a couple other things. First of all, Periel's animated short, Stupid, Stoopid, is now running on YouTube. So we've talked about it before, but Periel, just bring us up to date if you would.
Stupid at the Comedy Cellar. It's a animated short format talk show. We have 10 bite-sized episodes. Each one is with a different comedian, except for the first one, which is starring Mr. Noam Dworman. And it's doing really well so far on social media. They're being released every Monday on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
Why don't you release them all at the same time?
Because I don't think anybody's going to watch every single one. We want to build up a little bit of anticipation.
I do agree with her here when it comes to
You're all wrong.
No, because HBO, which still releases things in the traditional weekly format, does get better views than most shows that just get dumped on and you forget, because it's a one-time push,
Yes, but
and then it's over.
70 seconds.
That's all. That's an eon in the new world. And wait, are you voiceover acting now?
Yes, I am. I'm voiceover
The
acting.
multi-talented Noam Dworman.
Didn't we record one with
yeah.
you too? Yeah, you're going to be in season 2.
Did I?
I think so. Didn't you come up here and tape one with me and Marcus Monroe?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is the funniest one. That's the problem. It really is.
Well, you've seen them all? Or?
Yeah, I saw them all. Everybody.
General consensus is not that yours is the funniest one. I love yours.
The general consensus people told me.
No one would ever say anything not nice to Noam.
Yours is amazing. They're all
What's
great.
the funniest one? Dan's was funny.
Dan's is very funny. They're all funny. And I mean, I love Rich Voss's.
Folks.
They're great.
Folks.
They're all great, and we have amazing comics, and it's so exciting. We've been working on this for like 2 years, and the idea is to sell it or get it.
So the general consensus is not that mine was not the funniest; it's that they're all great.
Yes.
Well, it's a general consensus.
It's very general.
It's just very general.
The general consensus
They
is
only
general.
say very general things.
It's I don't know. We got listen. People could be bullshitting me as much as they're bullshitting
What's
you.
the specific consensus? When does that come into play?
Well,
anyway, you can watch them all on YouTube.
All right, stupid,
Anyway.
and you can't just Google. You can't just put in stupid, because there's a lot of things that are called stupid. So you go stupid Comedy Cellar, or what I like to do is Google stupid Periel.
I'm now. It's not on the comedy. Am I wrong in assuming the Comedy Cellar does not have its own YouTube page?
They do.
We
Yes,
have
we do.
I have a YouTube page, but there's nothing on it.
That's not.
buddy.
That's not true.
Gotta lean into that. That's the future.
But you're also wrong. There is a Comedy
And I'm
Cellar
wrong.
YouTube.
you're saying that
every single club is going to be a network in 5 years, and your YouTube page is a
Well, here's a
This
question.
show, wait a second.
You're done. You had your
No,
fun.
this show is on the Comedy Sellers YouTube page.
Whoa. Who authorized that?
You did.
Oh, no, I did not.
Not stupid. This show.
Oh, this show.
You
Oh,
also did.
Only my episode is on the YouTube page.
And actually, you did authorize the other, but we decided not to do that.
Why not? No, what's wrong with our YouTube page? But here's my question: what should be on the Comedy Cellar YouTube?
Clips like you were doing back when Comedy Central was still around. There should be clips, really well done. Like Mint Comedy, they're super great. But what that style, you guys should just be doing on
Okay,
your
but
YouTube
here's the
page.
thing, Sean.
Sean, you don't seem to understand, Sean, that Noam is too old and too rich to give a fuck.
No, it's not that at all. I'm not.
Which one aren't you?
I'm
Noam?
not too old.
Which one aren't you?
No, the truth is, this is the God's honest
Yeah.
truth, and Dan knows this. The idea of coming to the comedians and wanting to use their material in a way that's obviously going to benefit the club rubs me the wrong way. It's something. It's very hard for me to ask them to do that because unless I can offer them money, say, listen, I want to use your clip, and here's what you get in return.
Yeah.
Then I don't ask because I don't feel it's right.
Well, throw up a little more money and know that it's. I mean, had someone as Dan said, a favorite.
Yeah.
Do you say favorite? You said regular.
I don't recall
I say
that
favorite.
I don't
But
disagree with it.
Noam and I share a similar thing. The consensus is favorite. My consensus. No.
The general consensus.
But I know if you came to me and were like, hey, I want 15 minutes. I want you to give to me for the YouTube. I would do it in a fucking heartbeat.
Right.
Because
And
I'm
what
equally
would
as
you want
grateful.
for it? But look, I mean,
The
does it help?
exposure. The exposure. The
Well,
ticket sales that come
comics
on the road.
Comics are already posting shit on
Exactly.
Instagram.
Right, so we can just echo stuff on our stuff. That's fine.
But I mean, to make it look real good, like those Mint shows look, make it look real fucking good. Put a little production into it. You've got the tools, and just turn the YouTube page into a network. So in 5 years from now, people aren't just shooting their special at the VU and then putting it wherever they
But
put it.
Is it your girlfriend who does stuff like this, like graphic design or something?
She is a graphic designer, but we are no longer together. But we're still very good friends.
Oh.
She does a lot of stuff like this. She's excellent at it. But
I mean, if I could farm this out to somebody who's
young up and coming, like Matt Salacuse, get him involved.
well, someone who's in the camp of the comedians, because honestly,
Salacuse, that guy directs
Yeah.
everyone's special.
if it
Nicole.
if it benefits the comedians, you know, and they say no, this would help us. We would like you to you know renovate your YouTube page because it would benefit us. And
would.
of course, I want to do that. I don't really see it as a way to increase business for the club, but then I may be
It
short-sighted.
absolutely will, because in 5 years, YouTube's already the biggest streaming service in the world, and it's only increasing. It's only getting bigger. And if, you know, in 5 years or less than that, the YouTube page, y'all's YouTube page has 100,000 subscribers. Now you're talking, that's 100,000 people who see it, and multiply that by what, 5 or 6 more a day? I mean, that's the kind of viewership where, hey, you start making money off ads, so you can pay the comedians.
I mean, what
way.
you could do, no, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, is not just post clips, but maybe do something a little bit special. Like we're going to have a night where the comics are going to do topical humor, like your show on Comedy Central that we
Right.
had. And
That show was
and
fun.
part of your YouTube channel will be to do the show, that show that we had on Comedy Central called This Week at the Comedy Cellar. But you can do it the way you always wanted to do it, which I think was a little bit different than Comedy Central's vision.
Yeah, but Comedy Central was paying $1,500 a week.
Damn right.
To the
Right, well,
comedians.
I know, a show, but I mean, you could afford that. We all know. And secondly, if the viewership's there and the ads,
You'll make money.
you'll make the money to pay for everything.
I don't think the ads make that much money. I mean,
Oh, that's not true.
no, you need a lot of people watching. They make a lot of money. They make real money for people who watch a lot.
Soon, and then one day someone goes, I'm doing a special. Oh, who with? Oh, with the Cellar. And they know to go to the Cellars. Also, short films. I would love to do a short film about a ragtag group of comedians who suck, who couldn't get past at any clubs here, who decide to rob all 3 rooms on a Saturday night, the managers.
Let's do it. How much you need? Is that a joke?
I'm not kidding.
How much?
I think we could shoot that movie for 10 grand top.
Deal.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right,
It's
fucking
a
A.
deal.
I want to do it.
Done.
I want to do it.
Done.
All right.
Okay.
10 grand.
Was
It's
worth
2023 because I got to write it first.
2023.
Yeah, but that's in a month.
Can we?
That's a real deal.
I do.
You know, oral contracts
We'll
are
talk
binding.
about it. I'm gonna send you a script. I want you to give me notes.
Yeah, I'd love to be involved, but it's it's your call.
Well, you're producing it now.
Yeah, but I mean, you know,
Here's
that's fantastic. I'm excited.
All right, sweet.
I would like, if I could, to move along because we do have a lot to
Oh, yeah.
talk about.
How much you need then?
I don't have any.
To move along, how much you want?
Speaking of comedy clubs, Caroline's Comedy Club was just announced is closing its doors as of the end of this year. There's some ambiguous talk at Caroline's. They tweeted some ambiguity as to keeping the brand going and doing other things, but without any clear indication of what precisely. Other they're going to continue to be involved in the New York Comedy Festival. Whether or not they're going to open up another comedy club, I don't know. But in any case, their Times Square location is closing down at year's end, and of course, a lot of comics are posting videos from their sets on stage at Caroline's and posting memories of the club. So that's a pretty big deal. Not since Dangerfield's closed. I don't think we had a comedy club closure in New York City. That was a couple of years ago during the pandemic. The Dangerfield's closed. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that.
A good club closing. I'm sure there's been a couple of the.
Well, there might have been some smaller rooms and bar shows that have closed, but I mean an established club that everybody.
Yeah, I mean Caroline's was definitely top.
Caroline's been
5.
around since 40 years, they said.
Since the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but approximately, I guess, when you started the club here,
around that
time they started.
No, I was never at the original Caroline's. I don't remember where it was. Soho or something?
I think it was Chelsea. Then it went to
Chelsea. Is that the
it
original
went to
one?
the Seaport, I think so, and then it went to the
Seaport. I was at the original Caroline's was supposed to be a quite magical room.
The last place Bill Hicks ever performed.
Wow.
In the original
The
Caroline's.
original Caroline's was the last place he ever did a set. I think it was the original one.
I never
pretty sure.
been there, but people used to really speak enchantedly about it. And then the Seaport room was, pretty slick. I thought it was professional, And then this room in Times Square had, in my opinion, been let go in considerably. When I went there a few times, it was like nobody knew what anybody was doing. You couldn't get a seat. You couldn't get service. It looked like the wires were hanging off the ceiling a little bit. It looks like there was already the attention had been abandoned.
Someone said they stopped booking. They were only using newbies for a while too because they didn't have to pay them as much.
Yeah,
Or they didn't have to.
Well, the Caroline's was doing the headlining format mostly, right? I mean,
Yeah, that too. I mean, I guess that.
so they would have one act that did 45 minutes, as opposed to here at the Comedy Cellar in most clubs where everybody does say 10 minutes to 15 minutes.
I feel like even Gotham now does showcase style. They don't do
They don't do the
the
headliner
weekends anymore. They went to.
But the Caroline's was doing the headliner the whole time. I really wasn't paying
I think
attention.
so. I think so.
I haven't really. I never worked Caroline's very often.
Yeah, same.
I don't think I've been there in at least 6 years. It's sad symbolically to me because it's just a big name and it was around when I started. And
Yeah, I did a set there a month ago and it was good. So I'm glad my last set there was a good show. But when that room was hot, it was fucking amazing. But when it wasn't,
it was big.
oof.
That's
Yeah,
the thing. It was
big.
big.
Yeah.
It was what, 300 seats. The Village Underground, Noam, your biggest room is about 250.
200.
200. So this was what, 350 at capacity.
It was a big boy. And when it was full, it was awesome.
So
when it wasn't,
when it's a full room and they're laughing, it makes a difference.
Well, they would cut it down. They had
had curtains and they would cut it in half.
But everyone's aware of that. You ever?
But
'cause I've done
you're
those.
aware of that.
Yeah,
and
you're aware. Everyone's feeling like it's a curtain vibe.
There's a curtain, yeah. So I know you do that too when it's necessary, but it almost never has to happen.
We haven't had that in a long time.
Yeah, but I didn't even know there was a curtain.
Yeah.
There is if
In the-
needs
in
be,
in the underground.
but that's seldom necessary. Now, but Noam, as a competitor has fallen, of course, you had that. I guess provokes a reaction from you, perhaps, in terms of less competition, or does it matter?
I don't think they were on the same on the same.
Yeah, it
playing
doesn't.
field.
Well, I have to be honest, right?
Well, yeah, I would prefer it.
No.
Oh, thank you.
No. When a competitor finally closes,
Finally.
Yeah, it's usually because it's a last gasp. So the benefit is really not gonna. We're not gonna feel the benefit of a competitor closing because they're only closing because they're not doing much business to begin with.
Right.
So, you know, it's not good for the comedians because it's spots, it's fewer spots.
That is true.
Being
Those
given
fewer
out.
spots, yeah.
I wasn't personally fond of. I didn't have a great interaction with Caroline. So I didn't know her. I never met her, but just they would. There was a time when they would really kind of talk down to us. You know, everybody should learn, like, don't ever talk down to anybody. You just don't ever talk down to anybody.
What about you and Periel?
It's like Carlito's Way. You know Carlito's Way at the end where
yeah.
it's like you don't
Benny Blanco.
Yeah, you don't need to do that. So years ago when they first started the comedy festival, they wanted Esty to judge some sort of comedy competition, and Esty would judge the competition, and first prize was a spot at Caroline's.
Wow.
Yeah, this is so. I think talking to Lewis or like so.
Yeah.
So let me understand. So we will be, and then and the first prize is to go to the better club, right? And I said, well, I didn't do it, but
Yeah.
just the request always rubbed me the wrong way.
That shit is weird. And they also did like they also were big. I believe they were 100% behind the whole the bracket style stand up competition thing.
Maybe. Let me just say now it's quite possible and even probable they had no idea how I was going to take this. Like so, it might just be my own thing because I've had dealings with Lewis after that. He was nothing but a gentleman with me. Lewis was their booker. So, but anyway, I'm just being honest. It stayed with me. The club, I don't know. And these things make me nervous because ideally I would like every club to be packed.
Well, because part of you saying to yourself, you know, for whom the bell tolls.
That's right.
Metallica song?
I mean, what's better? Let's if my income is going to remain constant, I would rather know that we're attracting 30% of the people going out to see comedy on a Saturday night, as opposed to what may be 90% sometimes. Like we're like the Comedy Cellar is like really, you know, cornering the market. But you know, I think we do a lot of things different than any other clubs do. We just do.
You do.
Like, for instance, if you wouldn't mind giving one or two trade secrets that no one's going to steal from you
I can't give
anyway.
trade secrets, and there are some significant ones. But in general, we're hyper concerned about our customers in a way that no club seems to show any interest whatsoever. I mean, I spend my first 2 hours of the day or so going through emails, answering customers, offering refunds if they're unhappy, you know, just dealing with following up on how come the waitress didn't check on the person said their martini was not dry enough. Sometimes we get that comment, and I'll go and I'll look up, or as Liz look up the table number, contact the waitress. Did you check on this customer? Why are they complaining their martini wasn't dry enough? Like down to that kind of detail. And I'm not bragging, by the way, because that's like bare minimum what you're supposed to do if you're serious about customer service business. Like it's psychotic not to do that. However, they don't do that. So
There are also customers who make unrealistic. I mean, I've seen it, not here specifically, but I've seen it over the years at comedy clubs where it's people who they had no intention of actually going to see a comedy show. What they were expecting was completely different and not suited to them.
The customer's not always right.
No.
almost always.
Well, sometimes the customer's unreasonable.
A lot of the times the customers.
What about when customers?
Not our customers.
What about when customers complain about?
Really?
I mean, well, that's because. Well, if I may,
Yeah.
From my perspective, it's because the sellers created an environment where it's very honest what it is. Like, this is a comedy show. Some of it might rub you the wrong way. You agree to take that risk on yourself. It's not on us. But then you get people who come in there and decide, no, it is on you. That comic said.
Oh, you're talking about people who are offended. That's a whole nother universe of things. You're
talking. You mean specifically with service?
Yeah, I'm talking about service,
Sure,
just
sure.
the way they're treated.
Sure.
And we have problems in our organization. A lot of times the customers are right. But in terms of being offended, we had a little spate of it recently. But in general, we don't get much of that. But if they are offended, I give them, I say, I'm sorry, here's your money back or whatever. There's no come to see another show. Check the lineup more carefully next time.
Do they do the thing where they're like, I don't want the money back. I just want you to know.
No, usually they take the money.
Oh, yeah.
Are there?
Shit,
Well,
I
I'll
got-
tell you what the Comedy Cellar. I'll tell you what the Comedy Cellar does from my perspective that I don't think other clubs do, but I may be wrong. Is the and this, by the way, is not necessarily good for me, but the Comedy Cellar is constantly on the lookout for new acts
Sure.
in a way that my limited experience with the other clubs, I don't think they are. They're not hungry to find new acts. They have their people.
A lot of clubs cultivate, or not, that's the wrong word, but they sort of corral and do a thing where they're like, you're with us now.
And they become cliquish.
And it becomes cliquish, and it becomes this loyalty thing where it's like, what are you going to perform elsewhere for? We got you on stage. We've been putting you up since you were a kid. And it's like, now you've been making them host since they were a kid. Now they're successful.
We're like family. We're like
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. It's like, well,
Yeah, I hate that.
but I feel like here you're like, all right, you're in here now. Awesome. We treat you like family. We love you. There's love here.
But we will get rid of you.
But also,
You know.
get out there and do your thing.
Well, no, if you're not doing the job, you will be gotten rid of at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Just so you know, and you know this, when we opened the Underground, I did not ask a single comic to work there. You know, like the famous people, like the Chris Rocks and everybody who come in. I didn't even mention it to them. I knew eventually they would hear about it.
Right.
Because I did not dare to say, listen, you know, essentially what you're saying, like, come on, you know, we've supported you all the time. Would you come work our new club? I because the only reason they should work there is because they like the room.
Yeah.
Otherwise, every time they'd work there, they'd be like, oh, I'm about to fucking do this guy a favor. And then they would stop coming because they don't want to be asked to do favors. That's what
Yeah.
I do. If I know someone's going to ask me for something, I just avoid it altogether.
Right.
So, and I feel like that extends to everything. There's like, people should be loyal, but nobody should be asked to do something they don't want to do in their profession out of loyalty. I don't want any fucking comedian working at the club
Right.
to be loyal to me. They should work at the club because it's right for them.
Well, loyal in New York specifically, loyal to the craft, meaning out there doing sets, staying good, staying sharp. So when you're on any stage, but specifically here, you're at the top of your game. I think y'all respect that. I think you see if I'm like, oh, I got to run to do a spot at New York Comedy Club or I got to run to Gotham. I never feel weird saying that to someone here. If I'm like, because I've had it before where I'm here and I'm doing a spot and I got another spot later and Liz will be like, holy shit, we got to drop out. You want to go on in 20 minutes downstairs? I'm like, I can't. I got a spot across town, and she gets it. She's never been weird.
Yeah,
She's always
absolutely.
like, cool, go do it. And I come back, and it's like other clubs, there are, not all of them, but there are clubs that would be like, oh, so you got to go do the other. And you're like, well, you want me to stay on top of my game, right?
Yeah.
That's what, you want me, like, this is why I love
That's how
Liz.
mistresses act.
Well, I love
You
Liz
gotta
so
go with
much
your wife.
because, no,
Go ahead.
she has this stance of if you're just always hanging out here, that's not how you get past.
Yeah.
Like, you should be out.
Well, but it's
getting
not a
better.
it's not a negative
Not a
either.
negative thing either, but like she's saying, like when you see like comics, because you go down in that olive tree sometimes, and there are younger comics I've seen who are just in there every night hanging out, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Well,
Go
they
get
might just
better.
enjoy hanging out. It might not be that they think that's
Sure.
the way to get in.
No, they do.
No,
They
But
do.
no, if there's loyalty at all where I alluded to this, and you didn't really address it, but there's loyalty work at all the other way. I mean, I've been here a long time. For example, how bad would I have to be for how long before you'd show me the door?
It's
Or would
tough
there
one.
be any extra credit given for the years I've put in?
No.
Well, would have to be some. You're a human being at the end of the day. You're not totally a robot. You do have some personal feelings.
Yes, of course there's some. It's not. I don't. There is, but to be honest, I don't know if there should be, but there is. I've been through these things. I mean, you have to understand that it's asking a lot because if you go on stage and you don't do well, and it becomes predictable that you're not going to do well, this is my livelihood, and it's asking too much.
You know, that's you just said my biggest fear, becoming predictable in any way on stage. It's just something like, even like the other way, because there are some people who go on stage and just robotically do a good enough job, but you can tell there's no passion.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that.
I want names.
I will never. I will. But that is a good point.
So
yeah.
you know, I mean, if it was my son, let's say, he was a comedian, and he stopped doing well, I would cut him loose in a heartbeat because it's my son. I can get away with it. I don't have to deal with all the bullshit. It's not that I'm disloyal to my son. It's like, listen, we're running a business here. This is not a waitress could work for me for 30 years. And if a waitress began to predictably tell the customers to go fuck themselves, loyalty would not require me to keep that waitress there. I'd be like, I'm sorry, I love you, but I got to get you off the floor because this is a business. So having said that, it's not that easy because in real life, you do, when business is good and we let it ride, and I've been through this stuff, but at some point, it has to come to an end.
Also, other people see it if like people are sloppy and they get away with it, and that has an effect also, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, loyalty has to do with, like, I won't deal with comedies. Like, I'd have musicians, like, would have a gig with me every year. They worked 5 nights a week. And then they get offered $300 extra on New Year's Eve or something. And they would take the $300 extra and lie to me about it. Mm-hmm. That's not fucking loyal. That's the kind that's not loyal. That shows no integrity. You're grabbing $300 extra when you get work and you're lying about it. So, and comedians do that too sometimes. They'll cancel at the last minute for a marginal amount of extra money and give us a bullshit story that we uncover was bullshit. That bothers me. I don't do anything about it, but
I can tell you this. Yeah. One of my greatest joys here at this club. Making the audience laugh is amazing, of course, the goal. But when you make the band laugh at the VU, when you make Red or Jeremy or Ronaldo laugh, that's the fucking moment. Yeah. Because not only, yes, the wait staff hears everyone's jokes, but they are sitting there on stage with you, feeling every moment with you.
I find Red
when they laugh, it's the best.
I find Red is very generous. I can't judge by Red is the pianist that's up on stage at the Village Underground.
Yeah.
For those who don't know. I find his laughter very generous.
It is generous.
And quite honestly, I can't go by him. I have to go by the audience, of course.
Of course, always the audience. But always the audience.
But there are times when Red laughs a lot harder than the audience.
Yeah, but man.
And then I say, well, that's all fine and good, but I'd rather the audience laugh a lot harder than Red.
Yeah, I don't want to just be making Red laugh, but I'm saying I've seen him on stage just not laughing before, and you're like, I get it. He's heard this before, and it's killing. But when you're killing, and if I'm having a great set, and then he's still dying, I'm like, ha-ha, double, And if you hear the staff laugh, too, it's like, that's important. These are people who you are technically working with. Like, you've got to make their job a little easier.
For the wait staff, I think Noam relies on them
the staff
to keep tabs on us, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
Is that true?
I used to. Listen, if you woke up one day and were no longer funny,
right,
I would sooner give you money to help you, pay your rent than put you on stage. That would be loyalty. Like, he's been my friend for 20 years. He's having a tough time now. I would treat it as if you lost some other job. Like be coincident. Like, you lost a job with me, but I would say, well, if you worked for someone else and lost a job, you're my friend. So, yeah, of course, I'm going to help Dan pay his rent for a month or two because that's loyalty. But asking me to give you spots.
I'm not sure 2 months would cut it. You're talking about a permanent loss of sense of humor.
Well, whatever.
You got to carry me the whole way.
That would be.
You got to go work Greenwich Village for 1 year.
That would be loyalty. But asking somebody to get spots when you're not funny, that's too much to ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thankfully, people.
No network is going to allow a show to stay on the air badly. They're going to cut you loose in a second.
No, they'll just give them another show. Just move them to another.
Well, fortunately, people generally don't lose their ability that abruptly or that completely. I mean, some people lose motivation and they stop writing. Usually you can coast on old jokes anyway.
People get in their head and convince themselves that something's wrong, and then all it takes is...
But I've never seen anyone really lose it to any significant degree.
And actually, sometimes when it's someone who's really funny having a rough time, it's kind of fucking fun watching them. It's kind of hilarious sometimes the way they struggle through it. And you're like, holy shit, this is also... That's how you know someone's funny. If when they're struggling, you're still laughing. And then they get through it, and you're like, dude, I'm not going to tell you that was a great set, but I will say I was laughing. I've had that. I've seen that numerous.
Well, usually if they're struggling, guess who's going to struggle next? You. Because
you think?
If somebody that's very good and very skilled is struggling, the audience is probably the issue.
Which would you prefer as a comedian? Would you rather deal with like a rowdy, uncontrollable audience or a dead, tight audience? Which one would you rather deal with?
I think Dead and Tight.
See,
Yeah, I
I'd rather-
I don't like rowdy.
I'd rather bring them to life than corral them. Yes.
Let's talk,
Anyway,
if we
sorry.
could, about Sean Patton's new special.
Speaking of life,
Unfortunately, we don't have commercial breaks, so
Ah.
sometimes these transitions do get a little abrupt, but we do have different topics to discuss. Number one is Sean's debut special on the streaming service, Peacock, the NBC streaming service, produced by our dear friend, Mr. Michael Che
Michael Che,
Oh, wow.
an 800-pound gorilla.
of
Records.
SNL fame.
You don't need my 10 grand.
I mean, you'll be surprised. Streaming doesn't pay.
And it
Not
I
true.
met
That's
you have
not
Michael
true.
Che. Go ahead.
explores everything from obsessive compulsive disorder to the broken yet unbreakable bonds of his family. It's a heart-wrenchingly hilarious tapestry of his personal experiences and outrageous psyche, filmed at the world-famous Tipitina's, which is, I guess, a jazz club
It's a music venue in New Orleans. It's a very
in Nolans,
Yeah,
as we call it. One word if you're from down there, isn't it? Don't you call it that?
the way a true New Orleanian would say it is New Orleans, like that, like a New Orleans. Like people always go Nolans, and it's like you're dropping the "ew" for some reason.
Well, that's
New
how I thought
New
y'all said it.
New
but-
Orleans.
New Orleans.
or the
Remember,
bit-
I do a bit about it on one of my albums, but a true New Orleans accent sounds far more like a fucking cop, like a guy from, like a firefighter from Brooklyn. Give him some Valium, and once those take effect, now you got sort of like a New Orleans accent, just sort of like a loaded guy from Brooklyn.
How come you don't have an accent?
If you live in the city part and you've been gone for long enough, it's
well,
like
it's,
any
it-
accent.
it's like Boston. I mean,
Yeah.
Jared Freed is from Boston, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean,
And he doesn't talk. And then Bill Burr, fuck yeah, and Robert Kelly have those real
Yeah.
thick Boston
I mean,
accents.
Norman's from like the city as well, and he sounds like a carnival barker. You know what I mean? So it's like it's at a certain point.
But he doesn't sound like a New. He just has a weird voice. It's not New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, if I call my mom for 20 minutes, it comes back, but it sounds far more New York than it does. People think it's like, is this made out of alligator? I need a jambalaya right now. And it's like, that's, if
Well,
you go,
if you've watched Adam Sandler's
Yeah.
The Water Boy, you think
which
that.
is actually where he set that. I think he was aiming like Lafayette, Louisiana, 2 hours west.
Did you read
Yes.
Confederacy of Dunces?
Absolutely. Many times.
Many
Fantastic
times.
novel. Oh, it's a fantastic book. And I hope they never make it into a movie because it will be destroyed.
They've tried a million times.
They've tried. Ignatius Riley is too specific of a character for any living actor right now that I know of, anyway.
Now,
A
was
young John Goodman, maybe.
Was the accent written well?
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
That book's a work of art. It's a masterpiece.
Well, I've never read it.
And
I
I'm
know.
sorry
a lot of
that
people- I know Colin Quinn. I think it's his favorite book.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's
makes
one of
sense.
his favorite.
Makes sense. It's a work of art.
What,
But-
what about your obsessive compulsive disorder? What are some of your real life obsessive compulsive symptoms?
I mean, so obsessive compulsive disorder is a spectrum. My version of it doesn't show. Like people, I talk about this in there, but everyone assumes it has a lot to do with like tapping and counting and washing your hands and like I do all these things. You just would never notice.
You
You know-
really do them?
Yeah, but not so much anymore. But like growing up and as a young man, it was constant, and it all had to do with control. It all had to do with preventing nuclear apocalypses and family members from being murdered. All things you
Thank
knew.
you for your service.
You're welcome. Thank you. And all things that you realize are not actually real, but it's a disorder for a reason. There's some some neural pathways that still allow you to acknowledge and entertain these ideas, and they become preventative through these tics. through
It's
these-
an anxiety disorder,
anxiety.
right?
Well, anxiety is a side effect of it. I think it more has to do with this part of the spectrum you're on,
Mm.
right? But it's intense. But I got therapy. It doesn't go away like any mental disorder. You just learn to deal with it. And I talk about that in the special where it's just like here's all the. I mean, I spent years of my life doing insane shit that I knew was crazy and hiding.
Well, can you give us a for instance?
Microwaving, I was talking about a special. I used to microwave absolutely nothing for exactly 33 seconds at midnight on the dot every night for upwards of 6 years straight
Wow.
because that prevented Jesus from coming back. That prevented the biblical apocalypse, the day of reckoning to me. And there was a correlation. Jesus was 33 years old when he died, right? Microwaves unleash nuclear, but radiation. At the time when I started doing this was the 90s, when there was all this fucking talk about, it was post World War or post Cold War, but there was a lot of, who else has got nukes? And so me microwaving nothing for the years, the seconds of years that Jesus died during.
I didn't know 90s kids worried about getting nuked.
Yes.
Because in the 80s, we worried about the Russians. And I remember as a kid hearing a plane flying overhead and wondering, is that the Russians coming to bomb us?
No, wait. I have a question about this.
Yeah.
Tell us the story of the first time you didn't do it.
That came when I started doing therapy when I was in my 18 years old.
And you knew earlier in the day,
of course I knew.
Tonight I'm not going to do it. I did it last night. Tonight is the night.
Tonight I'm not going to do it.
Was there a couple of times you tried it first and then you, fuck it, I got to do it?
No, there was one time I truly panicked where I just, because this would also happen when I was not home. If I was sleeping at a friend's house, if I was at a relative's house, I would find a way to be around a microwave. And I can vividly remember doing it one time and my cousin being like, wait, what? There's nothing in here. I was like, oh shit, I forgot. And then just microwaving a piece of pizza that I didn't want and acting like I'm a dumbass. I forgot to do it. Hiding shit. You got so good at hiding shit. If a door slid instead of opened, I had to walk through it backwards. That one specifically had something to do with time, with being erased. But
So they were all correlated to preventing
they
something.
it was all about prevention. It was all about
So the first time
control.
you didn't do it, you decided you weren't going to do it that night. And then midnight came and passed. And you still weren't sure what was going to happen, or you were sure?
We're talking about 20-something years ago, but I can definitely tell you, I'm sure I had some real anxiety moments for the hour leading up, for the hour after I didn't do it, and then the next day waking up. And then when I stopped doing it, I know it was right around when Kosovo, when Clinton launched all the missiles at Kosovo. I remember having some real issues with it then.
Now just imagine if by coincidence that night something
Exactly.
happened.
Dude, I'm telling
9/11.
I'm telling you. I guarantee out there is someone.
That's so
John Stewart will be raising money for you.
I guarantee
That's
that happened to
so
someone.
fucked up. I
Somewhere in the
started-
world it did happen.
I started watching your special because I got a special link from NBC or whatever, and it's so
Stop showing off.
It's what you had it too. You just didn't click on it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, now, yeah. You also had that opportunity. It looked so beautiful, like the way it was shot.
It does. They did a great. Eric Abrams, the director, he knows his shit real well, and he did a fantastic job. I love I love everything about it. For years, everyone I talked to, I wanted to do my first one in New Orleans. I talked to so many production people over the years who were like, what if we build you out a stage on Bourbon Street? Hear me out, and we'll have producers behind the stage sort of vetting people as they walk by. I'm like, no. Or it'd be like, what if you did it on a Mardi Gras float? Or what if you did it during Jazz Fest at Jazz Fest, outdoors before I'm like, no. How about we just do it in a venue that if you know New Orleans, you know exists in New Orleans, and that's it. That's it. I'm not going to come out wearing fucking Mardi Gras beads. I'm not gonna ride a goddamn Nutria out. I'm gonna do a special in my hometown in a fucking dope ass venue. How about that?
And so, how did it finally come to pass? Like, how did you put all the pieces together in the end?
800-pound gorilla came and said, "We want to do it. We want to produce it. We'll put up the money. Thank you."
Who's the head dude of 800 Gorilla?
I believe his name's Ryan. I can't think of his last name right now because we talk that much. But they were fantastic to work with. And then we shot it, and I gave it to Michael because he had always said he wanted to produce a special, but he's a busy man. And I gave it to him, and he was like, "Done. Let's do it. I'm in." And he brought it to Peacock, and he was like, "Let's make this happen," and they did. And I'm very grateful. But man, it was 20 years in the making.
Congratulations.
But also, well, thank you.
No, it's amazing. It's wonderful. It really is.
I'm very happy with it. It's long. That would be the one complaint I can already hear people coming at me with. But
how long is it?
87 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It's a chunk.
That's
But it's got a narrative to it. It's not just a bunch of non sequitur shit. There's a flow to it, and at the end, it's like it fits. It's a piece, And I love it. At this point, I could care less what most people think. You have to get to that point as a comedian, I think. But I do say this with all, I love the special. I watched it. I edited it. I gave all the editing notes. I got surgical with it because I gave, I wanted the best possible version of it to be out there. And
Did you do one? Was there at one performance or multiple performances?
two shows.
Same night?
Yeah, same night.
2 90-minute shows the same night?
Yeah.
So is the second show was not probably quite as energetic as the first, I would imagine.
No, I mean, actually, the second one is where a lot of the footage comes from. The second one is the one, it's probably 60% second show.
Wow.
That's a common thing.
Yeah.
From what I hear, usually the second show.
Because they get the kinks out.
You
I
get
don't
the
know.
kinks out, you get the and also you find little moments. You're like, oh shit, I didn't say that in the second one, and it works.
Yeah, I guess that could be. But you're also a little fatigued. But I guess the energy is the energy
Get in
level
the
is like
zone.
given what's at stake.
I'm also just I'm a performer guy. I like it. I do it. I get it. It's a workout, but I love that shit. So you know what I mean? Like I'm a fucking lunatic. I don't know.
No,
Sometimes I think my voice is completely gone right now. Probably unnecessarily so. I shout a lot, but you know what I mean. I love it. I love it. So number one, and that's also a triple entendre, referencing obviously it being my first, but also the subject matter has a lot to do with that title. You'll see what I mean when you watch it. Yeah, there it is.
Well,
Best I can plug. I'm sorry, it wasn't a very funny plug.
there's very few comedian specials that I look forward to watching. I came out a little bit wrong, but I mean, like, I actually really want to go home and watch Sean's special.
You're a supporter, Noam. You always have been.
I am a supporter.
You should have the link, and if you don't, I can send it to you.
I think I saw the link, yeah.
no. Can I address
Anything you like, brother.
your recent episode with Hatem that you did with your podcast?
Yes, the one Dan sent me an
Oh
email.
my God.
Very disappointed.
But you should see what I got before you got that.
Go ahead.
Well, that's between us, but it was pretty much the same email. So Noam did an episode. Noam has another podcast. He's a moonlighting on us with Hatem, wherein he discussed Dave Chappelle's monologue, which was a big news item a few weeks ago. It's getting a little stale now, but anyway, we discussed it here on our podcast, and Noam decided he didn't really say anything, but he didn't want to discuss Chappelle. But he discussed it on this other podcast. So I was wondering why he didn't want to discuss it on this podcast, but was okay discussing it on the other.
I didn't want to discuss it on the other podcast either, but he asked me. I don't think he was as aggressive with his questioning as you were. I don't really remember the discussion, to be honest.
Well,
but
you
I-
said
I-
the same thing
we-
basically that you had said to me.
Well, I said that I felt like if you were going to discuss it, it shouldn't be from a hotel room in Israel at like 2:00 in the morning.
Oh,
when
is that
you
what
were
it was?
in
I
bed.
was in Israel. That's probably why.
So I said, like, if you were going to discuss it, that at least it should be something where you were fully present.
Listen, it's a touchy subject. I would prefer to, when I get a chance, speak to Dave and find, the monologue was probably purposefully a little opaque. It's a little, you're not sure where he was coming from, what he meant, and I don't really know. I don't really know what to say. Since then, now that he's come out, kind of done the full Nazi thing, it's easy to forget that he had
Talk about Kanye.
Dave, he hadn't done that when Dave did that monologue.
right,
so you can say, how could he say those things if Kanye's a Nazi? But he didn't know at the time that Kanye was gonna be out there praising Hitler. I don't think it would have been the same monologue if he had.
He hasn't been here, Dave, I don't think, since the monologue, I'm guessing.
Since that, no, he hasn't been here since that. He was here that before the day before, maybe that night he was there, but he hasn't been here since.
It's also why it's tricky to put so much of so much of the weight of the social conscious on comedians, because it's like, I mean, the one time I got to during the pandemic, I went to Chappelle's place with Cypher and Will
In Ohio.
just hung out, and all the comedians there, Michelle and Mo, and it was fun. And like, at one point he gets a call from Kanye and has to like step away and take it, and comes back and is just sort of, doesn't really talk about what, my point here is that he's obviously friends with the guy.
Yeah.
And the guy did some outlandish shit. And then he's got to do a monologue on SNL, 2 days later? So it's like, that's why sometimes I get, it's like the expectation of comedians to just always say the 100% right thing in big moments.
No, because supposedly, and I don't know this for a fact, but this is what I heard from a pretty reliable source, is that that's not the monologue that was approved by SNL.
Oh, I heard that too. That he just whipped it up.
Yeah.
Whipped it up.
Listen, you touched on something which I actually think is very true, which is that when you're friends with somebody, it's hard. When you have a relationship with someone. I've actually been there when Kanye's called also. I was there one time when Kanye called Chris Rock one time. So, people are friends with each other. And then you have a friend who's somebody you're friends with, and they're manic depressive, and they go off in a manic state, and they say something ridiculous.
Ridiculous, yeah.
You don't want to throw your friend under the bus,
Or you only want to throw them under the bus if it's like, let me get to the bottom of this first. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to know.
Even if you get to the bottom of it, it's just hard. Like, it's
Right,
like,
but you don't have to actively support, like...
Sure.
Well, also, the two things that Chappelle said that I didn't like didn't have to be said. It would not have been throwing Kanye under the bus to not say those things.
Was it the thing about all the Jews in Hollywood kind of thing?
Well, no, the two things that I didn't like were once when he said, look, Jews have been through a lot. This was, I guess he was talking about Kyrie. And he goes, but you can't blame that on black people. Kyrie was nowhere near the Holocaust. As if anybody said otherwise. As if nobody's ever blamed. I mean, Jews are pretty well aware that in terms of the history of Jewish suffering, the black role has been minimal, if that.
Right.
And I don't think anybody suggested other. The other thing he said that I didn't like is when he said when it's Italians, it's a mob. When it's blacks, it's a gang. And when it's Jews, it's a coincidence and you can't talk about it. The implication being is that Jews are the one group you're not allowed to talk about, but everybody else is fair game. Well, I don't think that's true. Ask Roseanne Barr whether that's true. Ask Shane Gillis whether that's true. They were both effectively canceled for saying things about other groups of people. So I think that's an unfair statement. So is that anti-Semitic? No, but it's incorrect. And it's bad information.
Oh, of course. And let me be clear. I'm not siding with anything Chappelle said.
I'm not saying
No,
I'm saying like the idea
I
that
hear what you're saying,
idea that you can't throw. I understand he doesn't want to throw Kanye under the bus, and I understand that, and I get it. But
I told you what I thought he meant by that.
But I don't think not saying those two things that I mentioned would be throwing Kanye under the bus. Anyway,
I think what Dave meant was that black people are not the people who have murdered and abused the Jews throughout history. No. And all of a sudden, there's a hair trigger when a black guy says, something, fairly, indirect, or maybe it's direct, whatever. But a black guy says something about the Jews, and all of a sudden, in Chappelle's mind, everybody finds it very, very easy to come down really, really hard on him.
Well,
when they're not so quick to come down hard on non-black people who are also anti-Semitic. That's what I think. That's where I think he's coming from. And then when I think that's
where he's coming from. I don't agree with it, but he may be coming from.
And that's what he says. Means like we're not the Holocaust wasn't. Black people are not responsible for the Holocaust. You can't say that we are, so whatever, something like that. Meaning like we're not the people who are abusing Jews all the time. So like,
okay,
I think that's what he meant.
Okay, nobody said that was the case, but Kanye West has gone on like a full-out anti-Semitic spree.
Yeah, since then.
And has incited like millions of people on the internet.
Listen, I'm going to tell you what listen, I have a very good friend, I did, you met him, Wig, who was a manic depressive, and when he would go into a manic episode, would say horrible things, including about me and tried to hurt me one time. And this is mental illness. Mm-hmm. And It just is mental illness. I don't know how you judge.
The problem is that your friend didn't have 6 million people on a platform
Right.
worshiping him. Like that's
no,
the problem.
what he's saying, what
Yeah.
Kanye's saying is horrible, and the effects can be
That's it.
horrible.
Fucked up.
But in terms of the moral culpability of a mentally ill person, I mean, when a mentally ill person kills somebody, we often say they're not guilty by reason of insanity. If a mentally ill person says something, I'm not quick. I mean, I have to understand, as much as I don't like it, I don't want to excuse anti-Semitism. I say, well, I don't really know what I'm dealing with here. This guy goes on TV a week later with his black mask on and saying, it's like, this is not, it wasn't that long ago when, what's her name, Ilhan Omar said, it's all about the Benjamin, the Jews are hypnotizing the world. Basically what Kanye was saying, and the Democratic Party just folded in front of her, and she's not mentally ill. So, yes, I'm supposed to be all upset about Kanye. Well, he's a crazy person. The Democratic...
people were upset about Omar, too. It's not like they were letting her off the hook.
Well, they did let her off the hook. They were upset for a day or two, and then they were going to write a bill like censuring her, and then they changed it so it wasn't censuring her. It was just like a generalized criticism of bigotry, including Pacific Islanders and blah, blah, blah. They blinked. They didn't want to take her on. So in that sense, I'm kind of like Team Chappelle. Like, really? You just...
But there's like real life things happening all over the country now.
Yeah, well, crazy people actually kill people. That's my point. Like real life things happen from mental illness, but that doesn't make
also
it not
really
mental
quick.
illness.
When I said Kanye had 6 million followers, that was not a Holocaust.
Oh, we heard
reference.
you.
That slipped out. That was not a Holocaust reference.
We know
He's
it
probably
wasn't-
got 8 million followers.
We know it wasn't really 6 million.
Well, as as somebody
Noam said it.
as somebody who's gone out has gone on record as not believing in free will, I don't know where you draw the line between mental illness as an excuse and just you are who you are as an excuse. But
Gotta
that's
at
a
least
more
consider it.
philosophical question, I suppose.
But it's an important question, because if the guy is expressing a mental illness, listen, when Dylan Roof shot up the black church and killed, I don't know, it was more than 10, 20 people. It bothers me that I can't remember these numbers of these terrible things that happen. But anyway,
They happen to fucking.
They
much.
happen to-
It's insane.
but people said, listen, he's crazy. And that was not an excuse of his behavior, but it happens probably to have been true. He's like fucking crazy. He's hearing voices, whatever it is. Kanye is out of his mind. He's clearly out of his mind.
Yeah, that mask that he was on Alex Jones's show.
He's out of his
Yeah.
mind, although even when he's medicated, I think there's a good likelihood that he's no great lover of Zion.
Well, I will
Or-
say this, that these I believe that these
Although I don't know.
these mentally ill people are products, their manifestations are products of what kind of seeps into their brain from their atmosphere. So it's not a coincidence that a mentally ill person from the deep south all of a sudden becomes a vehement anti-black racist who wants to kill black people, because he's soaking up those racist vibes all his life, and then it expresses through his mental illness. And I'm sure that Kanye in some way is expressing kind of this, rank anti-Semitism of the world that he's from.
But you know what? I mean, you can't compare Kanye to like somebody like Dylan Roof. I mean, this guy, for somebody who's quote unquote so mentally ill, is navigating his way, making billions of dollars, is a wildly successful businessman.
That's what manic depressive is. They have manic episodes. Like my friend Wig would be totally crazy, seeing things, like talking to bottles, like literally fucking out of his mind, wanting to kill me. And then a few months later, he'd be his old self again,
I think
normal.
that raises the question, what did Susanna Hoff mean by Manic Monday? There doesn't seem to be, for years I've wondered, what was manic about it?
Well, I mean, also
Was she having racing thoughts,
First of all,
delusions of grandeur?
yeah.
Prince wrote that song.
I yes, he did. But
Also,
Susanna made it famous.
Fame is fucking deadly, because also you see, and we've all seen it, when people start making money off someone, they get surrounded by impenetrable offensive line of sycophants
Yes.
who will
Yeah.
just feed them bullshit and feed their ego and feed their insecurities because they think that keeps them creating, thus keeps making people money.
It's really
It's
sad.
really fucking gross
It's
to
really
witness.
sad. I was having
Yeah.
such a
I
Kanye
hope it never
moment.
happens to you. Fame.
Well,
I'll be a loft-hold name at best, and that's where you want to be. Oh wait, what?
I'm sorry, Periel.
No, I was just saying I was having such a Kanye moment before all this. It was like the only thing I listened to like all day long for
Was
months.
Kanye music?
Mhm. He's a genius. I mean, his music is.
I'm not familiar with
it's
his
incredible.
work, but I know he's quite popular. Can we say also a word about? I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Kirstie Alley, who died this week at the age of 71.
71.
It seems young to me now. If I were 25, I would have said, well, she had a good run.
Wasn't she just in Wrath of Khan like 2 weeks ago?
Wrath of Khan, I think, was 1982.
How did she die? Do they know?
Yeah, cancer. It was cancer, and I don't think she talked about it.
Well, I think she didn't have it for very long. It sounded like from what I
It
read.
might have been just a vicious, aggressive cancer. I don't know. But it did hit me in a way that I probably would not have predicted, I guess, because
Ted Danson's he's gonna outlive everyone from that cast. Ted Danson's gonna be alive.
Is Shelley Long dead?
no.
But George Wendt is, right?
I know. I don't believe so.
I thought George Wendt died a few years ago. No?
You're saying that George went? No, I don't think I don't think he did. I think George went, according to Wikipedia, born 1948. He's 74 and still
Let
very
me
much
see.
with us.
Shit. Okay, never mind. I thought.
Carla Tortell.
What
Is anybody from that cast dead?
Well, no,
Am I just?
yeah, Coach is dead.
Woody Harrelson is.
Woody
Woody Harrelson is very much
Dead.
up
Woody
there
Harrelson's dead.
Rio Perlman
Dead.
is
Jesus.
74 also.
So never mind. I guess. Well, but hey, there's still time. I mean,
John
At least
Ratzenberger.
Frasier's actually dead, right?
Frazier's not dead.
Oh, Fraser-
No, nobody's dead.
fuck. Well, I know a lot about sitcoms.
John Ratzenberger is
Dead.
still very much with us. Ratzenberger is actually only 75. He's only a year older than George Wendt.
Where'd he go?
What about an extra who was in? Someone who played.
Well,
a
Al
bar-
Rosen is probably dead.
Yeah, there you go.
Remember Al Rosen? He was in like a few episodes where he was just the old guy, like honor. He's the full version of something I wanted to bring up. The full version of the Cheers theme song. The Cheers making your way, and there's an extended version that only played one time. It was actually, I think, like a song that they played on the radio, but it aired on the final episode of Cheers, and it had the following verse.
Yeah.
And your husband wants to be a girl. Aren't you glad there's some place in the world? So my question is, would that, not that they even have theme songs today,
Very Lou Reed.
but would that theme song ever even be considered?
No way. They'd have to change the words.
Why? That seems pretty progressive.
Yeah, I was about to say that seems.
Oh, it depends what they
Yeah.
meant. I took it to mean like it's a problem.
Well, I don't, first of all, the use of the word girl, and your husband wants to be a girl, kind of minimizes the trans experience by making like, no, he doesn't want to be a woman with thoughts and ambitions. He wants to just have female body parts.
That's probably just for the rhyming scheme.
Yes.
Yes, but be that as it
Woman's
may,
hard to ride. Well, no,
be that as it may,
yeah,
I don't think that would fly. For that reason.
yeah.
And the second reason is I don't think they would touch it anyway, just in case it might be misinterpreted. So somebody said to me, because I had this discussion, well, but if your husband was trans, that would be upsetting. There's nothing wrong with being upset that your husband wants to be.
You remember that there was a movie that came
And
out.
I'd say, well, that doesn't matter. It
that.
still wouldn't fly.
Yeah. I mean, I just can't wait till we get to a point where nobody touches anything. We're all just completely still in life, waiting because we're terrified. If I look this way, is that offensive to blind people who can't look this way? It's getting there. But I'm not saying, I'm not, I hear your point 1,000%. I just worry that
Well, I'm just saying, do you think that theme song with those lyrics would ever make it to the air today?
I part of me worries that, or wonders if someone hearing what you just said, if it's like, all right, but if girl minimizes the trans experience, that feels like we're deep diving there.
it seemed quite natural to me when I heard it. I'm like, no, that wouldn't fly.
How about the song Lola by the Kinks?
Yeah.
Well, I guess people still play that, but I think that, that's a rock song. We kind of forgive old rock songs.
How about Brown Sugar by the Rolling Stones?
Yeah, well, we forgive that. I mean, we let that slide. I think that people still listen. Nicole, what do you think?
I mean, Walk on the Wild Side. We're just
Yeah.
Color goes.
Yeah.
Nicole, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
What do you think of those?
That's how much better.
I wasn't even thinking about that part. I was talking about the whole now he's a she. Said, hey,
Oh,
babe.
right,
I
right.
forgot about that part you just said.
Also, Cheers is a sitcom, so it's lighthearted family fare. So the standards are different. Nicole, any thoughts?
I don't know. I don't think it's that deep. Like, I feel like Sean has a good point. It's probably just the rhyming scheme. I don't know.
No, of course it is, but just because the rhyming scheme doesn't excuse. I mean, if I wanted to rhyme something with
Trigger.
with trigger, that would not be an excuse.
Look at Periel says she's mad. Listen, can we stop this? Is there really anybody on planet Earth who could be offended by that? Like how
I don't know. We're gonna find out.
This is crazy.
I mean, yeah.
Also, Lou Reed was fucking other men, so I feel like you get some leeway when you're talking about your own experience.
Oh, sure. But I'm just maybe this person who wrote the song.
The answer is there is no way in hell that those lyrics would have been in the theme song in 2022. That's the answer.
Is there anything anybody could say, any word, any comment, anything anybody could say vis-a-vis your being Jewish,
Right.
which could reduce you emotionally, to a puddle? Like, can you get that offended by any remark, anything that anybody would do that you just can't say, oh, that was awful, I'm furious, and then move on with your fucking life? Like, but I'm just saying, like, are people really as offended as they make out to be? I understand they actually really are bothered by something that somebody says, don't think they should said it, were offended by it. But they go beyond that to really pretend as if they can't go on with life because they heard this particular word or this implication or whatever. Or I just think it's all bullshit. Am I wrong?
I would be upset if the kids were around if somebody said something really disgusting and anti-Semitic.
I don't think that.
You'd be
I don't
upset.
think.
Then what? And then what?
I would be okay.
And then you'd be okay, right?
But that's not the standard that is applied. I mean, you may be right.
I'm not in any way minimizing how foul some of these things are. Offensive things, offensive word, all that. What I'm just saying is that as foul as they are,
People are still going to say them, and occasionally you're going to have to get over it on your own.
the reaction just doesn't seem real to me.
Yeah, we can't create a world where we can't protect everyone all the time from everyone all the time.
In colleges, they have crying rooms and like, it's like,
They do,
yes.
I didn't know that. That's wow.
but not smoking.
I just call it a shower. Am I right? Am I right? That's what I call it.
That's his second Holocaust reference tonight.
No. Jesus.
Well, just because it doesn't, but it's still, I prefer to be polite if I can be.
Yes,
Of course.
I mean, I went to Yad Vashem, which is a Holocaust memorial, when I was in Israel 2 weeks ago. And it's very upsetting, but they have this whole room there with like the Nazi posters making fun of Jews and kind of like the horrible humor at the Jewish expense. It's upsetting. It's very upsetting. And then I left, and then that's how that was upsetting.
Yeah. And
Also, it wasn't current. You knew it was from the 40s. So, I mean, if you saw it in the paper today in the United States that people were buying, that might be a bit more upsetting to you.
Yes, but quite often this stuff comes up in the context of history. Like I just heard, I didn't want to talk about it, but I heard a story today on the news. It was actually what's in my mind of some historical thing that was going on about history, and then somebody just essentially got the whole thing canceled because they didn't think this particular thing in history should be spoken about. It's like just crazy.
No, I mean, I think I hear your point 100%, Dan. Like, be polite.
I'm not sure I have
chill.
a point.
I think your point is
my
be
point
polite.
is my initial point was only that the network would never let those lyrics in a theme song today. That was really my only point.
Okay.
But then that got expanded into other realms.
I do think there's a world though. Like if I'm hanging out with someone who's a lesbian, and I go, oh man, have you tried a Klondike bar? I didn't mean anything by that. and if someone gets offended,
Sean, you never mean anything by any of this stuff.
it's like that's what I'm saying. Like
You never
but
mean
that
anything
kind
by
of shit-
6 million reasons or the
No,
shower.
no. But like things happen. Like sometimes things get said, and I get it. I get when a word or a phrase offends someone. But to Noam's point, it's like, but then what?
I did hear something on
Like-
TV on the YouTube today with Anthony Cumia and Gavin McInnes. Somebody sent this to me. I don't watch. I don't know if they have a show together, whatever it is. And they were debating this whole Jewish thing and Jews controlling Hollywood. And Cumia was saying, well, why can't you? You know, they get so mad when you happen to mention that 80% of Hollywood is run, maybe he said controlled by Jews. First of all, is it true there's 80%? Is that a real number?
I don't know.
don't
But
know.
it's high. It's high, I would imagine. I don't know if it's 80%. It's probably less than it used to be in the old days with Louis B. Mayer and Jack Warner and all these people. I think it was more.
But what he didn't mention, and neither of them mentioned, was it's a question of why it's being mentioned. If you say 60% of Juilliard is Korean kids, that's like those kids are awesome. Like look
Right.
like look how great they are, right? So like why are people commenting on it? If they're commenting on it because they're suspicious of the Jews, then of course everybody has a right to react to it. It's not a question of whether it's true or not. It's like, where are you coming from? What's your point here? Are you saying the Jews are doing something wrong? Are you saying they're in cahoots? Are they acting in concert? Like, what do you imply? No, I wasn't. I was just mentioning. What? I can't mention a true fact? It seems so disingenuous to me. Of course you can mention a true fact, but if it's in a good faith way, but it didn't feel like a good faith way. Feel like he was like, had a beef with the Jews.
Well, maybe he does.
Yeah.
And the other thing that nobody ever talks about is in all of these things that the Jews quote unquote control is Jews got into a lot of these professions because nobody else wanted to work with us back in like the, I don't know, 30s,
We don't need to make any excuses for why we're in the
No, it's
profession.
not an excuse, but it's I mean, part of the story.
I don't think that's the story of Hollywood. I think Jews are clever entrepreneurs and started movie studios. But
I'm also like, as a Southern boy who grew up, and like I've never understood the beef with Jewish people, and I'm not just saying that because I'm in a
spoken
room
like someone who didn't have much experience
Yeah.
with Jews.
Right. No. Who's like I've never understood the beef. And I know I'm in a room full of Jewish people right now, but I'm like, I don't get who cares? Why is it such a problem? If Jews run the media, who gives a shit? If Jewish people run businesses, why is this an issue? Like it's like I've never met
I mean, it's
Jewish
an issue
people-
if they're using it for some nefarious purpose.
I don't-
Which
I've
is what
never
the
experienced it.
implication is.
what's the
Generally,
nefarious
when
purpose?
people say that, as Noam said, when people say Jews control Hollywood, oftentimes the subtext, the undertone is, and they're using it for some nefarious.
And you know what I, as a
Purpose.
non-Jewish person, don't want to do? Control Hollywood. I don't give a shit. I don't. You know what I'm saying? So I just, to me, it's like, why was?
Don't knock it. It's not bad.
It's not bad, but but that's what then that's what they should do. Like I'm like, hey, fucking do what you do. I don't see what the problem is. I don't know, but then again, I know it's history and there was beef and it was all based in racism. I get that, but like and anti-Semitism, I get that. I just as a
These days, there are all these studios, I assume, are public corporations that, I mean, who knows who's.
also run by the Jews, obviously. No, I mean, I don't know. It's just, but who cares?
Well, but
Like,
they're run by stockholders who are from everywhere, and
We're also Jewish.
there you go. It's just that. I just think
Look.
I think it's people who want control who are being assholes about who has the control currently.
We're not good at sports. like there's only.
I think that's an exaggeration. I think there's a grain of truth to it, but I think it's an exaggeration.
We're not good at sports, and there's certain things we're good at, and those are the professions we go into.
Money.
Yeah,
That's not money. Well,
there are.
being good at things usually leads to money.
Well, isn't there like? I mean, isn't there proof somehow? I don't know what the proof is, but that Ashkenazi Jews are like technically have higher IQs than
Well,
most.
thank you for joining us, Sean.
Good need. Good.
And that concludes today's episode of Live from the Table. Well, we don't want to get into that discussion, but there's
But you see, there you go. You ask a question, and now the whole fucking shit's an upheaval. If intelligence is part of the game, questions should never be looked at as weird.
It is true that Ashkenazi Jews, on average, have higher IQs
Yeah.
than
insert Periel reference, joke here.
Yeah.
Except, interestingly enough, they have slightly lower average scores in spatial relations, which is a little.
Hey, that's why we can't throw a punch.
But having said that,
But you can-
the real controversy is whether or not that's as a result of their upbringing, or is it actually, an inborn advantage? That's where you get into really hot water.
So the guy who was screaming those anti-Semitic remarks to the parents in Michigan last week that were dropping their kids off at Bethel daycare.
Yeah.
You heard this story?
No.
Okay, so he was screaming, "I'm going to kill you," and all this like horrible anti-Jewish stuff. So he's in jail and he's being held on $1 million bond, and he was on a Zoom. This is all over the
$1
news.
million bond for what?
For I don't remember exactly what the charges, but threatening to kill, whatever it was. It was, and the judge was Jewish, and he was screaming at the judge like, "You Zionist pig, you fucking Jewish bitch!" And she goes, "It's my turn now."
She's really Jewy. You should put like a Jewish character in your act. Like, she's just like.
I mean, my mom has all the attributes of every Jewish mother I've ever heard about.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, there you go. That's what I'm saying. Like, I've just everybody who's ever heard. Whenever Rachel Feinstein talks about her mom, I'm like, sounds like my mom. Whenever.
Actually, Rachel Feinstein's mother's, she converted, but she was not born Jewish.
All right, we got to go.
All right. Podcast at comedyseller.com for all your comments, questions, and suggestions.
Sean Patton's special. What's the name of it again?
Number one.
Number one.
Available on Peacock.
Thank you.
And thank you again for Nicole Lyons, also for...
Remember, I promised you $5,000.
Available... It was 10 grand. Nicole Lyons is available for video and audio editing. So you can email us if you want to hire her.
Wrap it up, Dan.
All right, bye.
Bye.